what can you tell us here? Now, this is one of the first maps I bought, and I bought it from John Spencer at the bookstore. And I believe you told me that you bought this fact from Paris. Yeah, right? Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure you said that. Either that or you made it up. No, I think it's pretty. It came back from a show at Paris and in Paris, and John had it framed, of course, properly. It's 1755, and you know this man.
I do that. So you see in the cartouche, Valgandy's, Monsieur Valgandy, and that's was a family actually of map makers, Giles and Robert de Valgandy. They were very, very skilled draftsmen. Publishers, really, I said that before, that publishers used information, and they wouldn't necessarily be the ones going out and doing any kind of surveying or charting or anything like that. They never even set foot in the United States at all. So they were relying on information that was brought back to France or to Europe from other sources, other documentation, map makers that did work in this area before. I mean, 1755 is pretty early for a map of this region. What I love about their maps, you can see the title cartouche there in the sea is very beautiful, very decorative, but it also helps balance things out. It's, if you look at it not just as a source of information or geography, it's definitely a piece of artwork. Right in the heart of the French Rococo, you can see the design elements in the cartouche there, fine engraving, but then going up into the upper left corner, that is balanced by that inset of the Carolina and Georgia region, which of course the main body of the map doesn't show. It just, that's an extension without making the map a much larger piece. They would often put those insets in there to show, further into the geography going south. So I love that balance between the cartouche and the inset there. And of course the engraving is wonderful.
Yeah.
Now that map actually does show Owego on it.
It does. Well, I think all of these do. We'll be sure. This one may. No, I think this one. Let me get it up here. So I'm interested because I think I bought this one from you, and I think the catalog said that this one was 17, or at least circa 1750. So I thought I gained 5 years, but I guess I'm not. I guess we're not really sure. But this is very interesting because it's done beyond New Jersey and New York, New Jersey, and metropolitan Pennsylvania, not really along the main line. Pretty quickly, it just turns into wilderness. So, and it's in German, and you follow the river up here, and here we are. It says Oswegi, Oswegi, but there is also up here Oswego.
Directly above it.
Is it directly above it?
Pretty much.
Oh yeah, Oswego, regular old Oswego, where we know Oswego to be. But you come down here and run into Oswegi, which is another one of the spellings. Now I got to admit that this also shows Oswego, which is, I think, is Otsinengo, and I have to share the credit with Otsinengo as being. I see that too. That goes way back. But other than that, in our general central New York area, very seldom is anything mentioned. Can you tell us something about this?
About the map in general, sure. As it relates to Oswego, or Owego, that's a very, very small part of this map, obviously. But like you mentioned, the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and that's what the title of the map describes it as. This is also an example of a map that was where the geography was taken from an earlier cartographer. Lewis Evans was a very, famous English cartographer and geographer. Traveled on foot throughout Pennsylvania and this region and made his first map in 1741. This has some, stylistic differences. Again, that sort of elaborate figure cartouche up there. I think in that one there's maybe William Penn,
Yes, I think
or
so.
what's purported to be a portrait of William Penn in there,
And
and
the natives.
some native figures involved in trading. What's nice about this is the color. I think on the earlier Vaugandy map, you had some outline coloring, which is good and is probably original in dealing with antique maps when they're colored. Of course, these were printed black and white, and then they were hand colored. So this color that you're seeing on there is watercolor that was applied at the time that it was printed. Lots of copies survived uncolored, and it's sort of a modern business practice by dealers to color maps up. I've seen examples of this, which are much, much more illuminated. The cartouche is fully hand colored. Something like that would have been extremely costly to do at the time. This was published in Nuremberg, and to have a studio commit that amount of time and effort into coloring it so in so much detail would have been insanely expensive. So few copies of that would have been made for very important people, rich people that could pay to do it. This is how you would a standard coloring for this map broken up into not states then, but regions and territories, and even getting up into the New England area. I think what's kind of funny about this map, you see it's, New Jersey and Pennsylvania is very nicely descriptive, but then when you get up into Connecticut and Massachusetts, it's really, really, almost hilariously condensed.
Yeah. All that means that it's probably worth what I have to give for it. Okay, I'm glad of that. Yes. Oh, that's right. Oh, yes, it would be, wouldn't it? Wonderful.
Hey, Jim, is it okay if we ask a question about this one?
Sure, go ahead. No, absolutely.
So, is it possible to zoom in on that, on the Owego area a little bit there?
I don't think I have.
I was having an interesting discussion, like, when we were looking at the map over here. And we were talking about the actual size of the village and the layout of the creeks in the area. Yes, you want to go right to the top of PA, just a little higher than that?
Put my finger on it. Here's what I.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay, so yeah.
Just got a glare, a little bit of a glare.
Okay. So when you follow the Susquehanna up, see that big river is the Susquehanna.
Yes.
It goes right and it continues, right? So this would be kind of the line here. And then this branching upward, I would think is actually Owego Creek because it says OSWEGI up here. And Gerald and I were talking about like back in the day, these Native American subsistence like communities were more spread out than like your modern day towns, and they had like hunting grounds and fishing and farming areas, and there might be one community living in multiple sites throughout the year. Yeah. So we were wondering if that was the reason that maybe they had another community that was on the top that the same tribe or group or settlement had two settlements, one that was where the town of Owego is now, like their fishing area, and maybe one that was like more of a farm/hunting community further north. Because it looks like it comes right to the top of where Owego Creek like turns, you know what I mean?
Mhm. I think that's a very good
Yeah.
guess. I mean, water source, of course, was one of the main reasons why a group would choose to settle in an area. And I'm seeing there, you see Oswego, and then above that Oswego. I guess that's what you're referring to.
Oxeningo, yeah, so I'm believing that's Oxeningo.
Yeah,
I
even
think,
Montenegro
Uh-huh.
started around 1100 AD before we can date it. And we know where Otsiningo Park is, and even the word Shenango is a derivation of Otsiningo. But it moved up and down about 7 miles and went almost up to what is Shenango Forks today, because they migrated by their hunting seasons and their growing seasons. So that's
Mhm.
very, of course, they always stayed near a river.
yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if these guys used Owego Creek in the same way.
You know,
Like, if they went from-
well, I don't know about that, but Owego Creek shows up very early. Susquehanna River and then Owego Creek and Owego and they sometimes call the Chemung the Tioga, however you want to say it, became Tioga, different spellings.
Yeah.
And that becomes evident. We were at Cooperstown once and went down to the longhouse on the river there behind the art museum, or on the lake rather. And I was told the story, and I don't doubt it. You know, where we're standing, maybe not now, but there's 14 feet of topsoil around here that they keep digging up, to get to the gravel. Over where the OFA complex is was in my youth, was all cornfields. That had been cornfields for millennia. I mean, the alluvial action of the flooding of the Susquehanna every spring was a farmer's dream. And I was told that they would come down the Susquehanna, lived in Cooperstown on the side of the lake, up there, everything's gorgeous, and build a lawn house, come down in the spring, plant the Three Sisters, go back up. The men go hunting and the women prepare whatever. Then everybody comes down and gathers it up, takes it back upriver, and the women work on it and prepare it and eat it and everything all winter long, and the guys just lay around the lawn house, right? They're happy to eat it. That's what I was told anyway, and that kind of goes to what you're talking about. And I believe it, really.
In the Clinton and Sullivan officers' diaries, they did talk about marching up the creek. So I don't know about the proportions, but they didn't say that Oswego was on the Susquehanna. They implied it was up Owego
So
Creek.
more towards where Candor is, or Cat.
No, I don't think it would be that.
I mean, that is at the juncture of Catacomb Creek and east Owego Creek.
Right,
So
Well, that would be the neighborhood of Metro's restaurant.
Mhm.
in the neighborhood of your museum.
And Flamingo, yeah. I mean, it could be really anywhere there. Now, I was told, and there's a thing that's long called the Indian Spring, which is over the Vesper Cliffs, is the beautiful big 1820, is it, I think, house just as you go outside of the village, and it's on the right, back in the pine trees. And I was told that, and that's kind of like our Green Acres, the farm area there. And I was told that that's actually where the Owego village, native village was. Now, I don't know, but it makes a certain amount of sense. They'd be up there, and then their water supply is right there, and it's pretty ideal.
Charles Pompey Avery in the Susquehanna Valley talks about that as a burial ground along the ridge there.
I mean, yeah. Well, okay. Well, good stuff's coming out. Okay. Power up to 1768. I find this one interesting. This is a map that was printed in no, it's not 1768. It's the Guy Johnson map. I can't the Fort Stanwix line. Anyway, I believe it's not, it was maybe drawn or agreed to or something in 1768, but I'm not sure. And the reason I like this one
Can I move your camera down?
was because it shows that the Fort Stanwix line, which I know a little bit about, goes right through Owego. Now, that also indicates that we are of some, I would think, of some importance. Is that showing?
Yeah, I think you can see it now.
Or the other? Well, anyway, it starts up and this has been colored in red, which was, like, some of them are and some of them aren't, so maybe it costs another $1 to get it colored in red or something, but it starts up here at Fort Stanwix, and then it meanders down through New York, and it goes right here. Oh, here we are. Here's Owego. Maybe we need to get a little bit more of that. Have we got it now? Yeah. And also, then it goes through Chocoanut. We see, and again, we see Oswego, which again, I think is Owego. And, but the point is that, as I understand it, if where we're standing was English territory, and if you went across the Owego Creek, you're in native territory. But I don't know that much about these things. Who knows?
Sir William Johnson was the one who negotiated on behalf of the British to come up with a settlement issue between the Native Americans and the British. And Fort Stanwix is Rome, New York. If you want to put it in modern day counterparts. Actually, the Fort Stanwix Treaty Line, by the time you get down to the southern tier, follows the Delaware River into Pennsylvania, but then it cuts over to the west again. And it was his wonderful solution, which was supposed to keep all the colonialists on the east side of it, all the Native Americans on the west side. And it wasn't a bad solution, except those gosh darn people up in Boston started shooting at the British through the T in the ocean. And it didn't last only a handful of years. And Guy Johnson probably did the map, because I've seen that map before.
It says corrected and improved from the Evans map,
Okay.
by Guy Johnson, Department of AG something of Indian Affairs. I don't know what the AG is. And I guess that's the only date I'm seeing. I guess I'm wrong. I thought that this was a later reprint, but I guess it's actually 1768. So, but I think you all have to agree, right, that if they use the Owego as a place.
Yep. Otsego and Owego were always,
Again, very, it shows some, important.
it was beyond the fog.
And we have to remember that this is really all over, even this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's,
It's virgin forest.
and I don't know if my friend Ed Nizolowski from York Valley was able to comment. I don't see it, but he has a theory that when you get further and further back,
Get a bigger view.
you know, we
Not
go
there, is it here?
only.
There.
He believed that they were very cosmopolitan, meaning that there were runaway slaves, with the natives, of course, maybe the French that came up from asylum when that deal failed down there. And, a real amalgam, kind of a metropolitan or cosmopolitan mixture, not purely a native village. We don't know, it's a question of sociology and travel and economy and commerce and everything else, but he might certainly be right about that.
Yeah, I don't know about, the French asylum doesn't start until the period of the French Revolution. That's a few years later.
Yeah, well, that's.
You gotta chop off her head first.
Yeah, that would be like French trappers and people.
Oh, yeah.
But there
Well,
were
you had
French here.
Right, the French were down there, right?
But were French in this, but there were French here in
French
forget
were-
the asylum, there were French here forever.
Well, the French were here also working with the Native Americans, which is why the British tried to get the Native Americans on their side. Which is why Fort Ticonderoga went from being a French fort to a British fort to an American fort. Because everybody tried to court the spots that were important.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Fun stuff. Run her back first.
I think I think the other side would be better.
Go from there. Lot of text down here. I don't know. Anybody out there? And Owego is where? It's there. Up there. You know this one, Caleb?
It looks familiar. It looks like the German version of the English Thomas Jeffries, probably by Hohmann, if I would guess. I can't see it clearly enough to really identify it, but again, 1750s, maybe 1760s on that one. You know, it's interesting that you have that in your collection, just as your local history relates to the history of what was going on in the entire continent at the time. Like you know, everything we were discussing with that last map. This is mainly a French and Indian War type of period map. Some of that explanatory text in the top and the bottom would go into detail about what's happening in the continent. And this wouldn't have been something for American consumption. Obviously, it would be for European consumption, and promotional tools encouraging folks to come and settle in the area.
And this one, you talked about the fine work and coloring. The cartouche here is multicolor and a very fine work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a Swann sticker on it, so I guess that came from you.
All right.
And then, given that, I forgot I had a double here. This one I don't think is dated. Maybe you could shed some light for me. Yeah, well, almost. It's North America drawn from the latest and best authorities. And other than, there's an attribution here. Engraved for Joe, you know the name here, Harrison. Engraved for Joe or John or Joseph Harrison. The New York, I guess, 1787. So this is the year of the so-called, well, I guess who taught up in 87? David Draper?
Yeah, Draper, William Bingham was fighting it out with Robert Luther and James Wilson. Everybody wanted a piece of the land here.
Yeah.
Draper was his big trade.
Caleb,
I'm sorry.
anything to add on that?
Just what I like about this map and maps of this style and period, looking at it from here, how I am from a distance, I can see it very clearly. You know, the East Coast is very clearly defined. The colonies, you know, it's always funny to see the Carolinas stretching all the way out to the Mississippi River, but everything to the west is completely or nearly undefined. And you see that in a lot of earlier Dutch maps, 17th century Dutch maps. The English, they really wanted to, they wanted to label everything and have everything defined. The Dutch were, you know, they were perfectly willing to say, you know, we don't know what it is. We're not going to attempt to make any, you know, claim to know what it is. And they'd actually write on it, you know, areas unknown or parts undiscovered, generally in Latin for those earlier maps. But I can't tell if anything like that is appearing there, mainly in the Northwest. Maybe not for this map, but you know, that to me, that's what's sort of strikingly interesting about this, how you see the development of the country and the continent over time, looking at maps like this. you know, where there was obvious settlement and encroaching and moving westward at westward expansion, getting into the 1820s, Manifest Destiny and all of that, and then getting over into California and Oregon as the centuries progress, you know, into the 19th century, and then you start getting much more detailed maps of the western.
I'm thinking here they're calling Oregon, Washington State area. It's called New Albion, and it's basically the kind of going the wrong way. The Rocky Mountains is called the Snowy Mountains.
Snowy Mountains. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, I have a question for Caleb. I was wondering what kind of techniques they used to measure and define the directions and locations of things before they had like manned flight. You know, like how were they able to see the contour of a coastline like they did on that last map? You know, what were some of the tools they used, I guess?
I mean, it's really, really incredible surveying skills and draftsmanship. It's something that I often wonder myself. I mean, obviously, yes, there are tools to measure distance, measure contour, measure topography, but you know, I think in my head those are very modern tools, and what they had was just basic hand tools, and doing detailed survey work using the rod and chain system, but the coastline, and I think to even earlier maps of the Chesapeake, you can see there, but you know, in the 1620s, John Smith literally paddling around the Chesapeake Bay in canoes and boats and taking notes and drawing maps and taking it back to London and having them published is just it's astonishing. I don't know that we could do it. We're too reliant today on modern technology to even know how to do something like that. But they did come up, however distorted some of these early maps do look and appear, when you frame it in the time that they were doing it, it's extraordinarily accurate. So that's fun.
This one is up by Raynal. I'm sure you know Ghislaine Thomas Francois Raynal. It's 1713.
And actually, so on that, under the title Bone or Bon is the map maker, and Raynal was he published the book that it came from.
It says that Bon was an engineer, mathematician, and cartographer from Rocourt, died in Paris. Yes. Jacques Nicolas Dallien as hydrographer at the Depot de la Marine in 1773. I guess that means he also mapped the oceans.
The Depot de la Marine was you know, the sort of 18th century French equivalent of what we would have today as you know, the Navy or official archives of the French government. So you know, a lot of these map makers and publishers, they were high ranking people. They had government positions, and again, even if they didn't venture themselves to the areas that they're presenting in these maps, they had access to all the information from the explorers and navigators for their country who were coming back with the information. All that would be given to guys like Bellan, guys like Bone, to compile an accurate map, because the government obviously had vested interest in having accurate charts of the area.
Okay. This is the state of New York from the best information in 1800, engraved for Payne's Geography, published by L. Lowe, New York.
Yeah, that's a nice little map. It's something that would have come out of virtually all of these maps would have originally been bound into and included in either an atlas format or a geography book. Something like this map is probably from a little gazetteer. It probably has some fold lines, vertical fold lines along in the center of it, where it would fold out from the book, and would have had all the states, start out general, map of the United States, map of the East Coast, and then individual maps. So somebody in 1800 studying American geography would have had access to this, and to increase their knowledge about individual states and what the geography and topography looked like there.
By now, it's really starting to look like New York State, and they're showing all of the Finger Lakes in relatively proper position. The others, they have the Finger Lakes all over, maybe one or two, maybe 4 or 5, but they're all squee-waddy. They didn't really know what was going on. But by 1800, they're pretty well there. Now, the thing that really interests me about this map, I don't know if Jerry was able to see it or Bryan, but where Broome County is, more or less, it says ceded to Massachusetts.
Yes.
No, can you speak to that, Jerry?
Yeah. Part of the problem when we won the revolution from the British is the British have given both Massachusetts a royal grant that said their western border went from that, where we think of it as today, all the way to the other ocean, right across the United States. They gave the same sort of provisional road grant to Connecticut, saying their border went all the way to the other ocean, which meant that Massachusetts cut right across the southern tier of New York, Connecticut cut right across the northern tier of Pennsylvania. That didn't set well with the people in New York. It set real well with the people in Massachusetts. And so they came up with a settlement in 1786 called the Boston 10 Towns or the Boston Purchase, whereby New York ceded, I just looked it up, thank you, Jim, for getting right to the point, 230,400 acres, which encompasses almost all of Broome, a good portion of Broome, Tioga, a little bit of Chemung, some Tompkins, a little bit of Portland today, and sold it to 60 proprietors. It's a nice way of saying investors, at 12.5 cents an acre. Now, most of those proprietors are Western Massachusetts people. If you think Norman Rockwell, it's right in that area, Stockbridge in that area. And some of them came here, some of them didn't. Some sent agents. Pompili was a surveyor working for some of the investors. That's how he started. James McMaster and Amos Draper were already here trying to buy that land, and then the people who owned it said, no, you can't buy it, we already got it. They were McMaster made out fairly well. They gave him 18 square miles of land. He couldn't buy the Boston Purchase, but they gave him one that was 6 miles long by 3 miles wide. So, but that, you'll see that reference appear in map after map after map, because for those who have to do deed surveys, you'll see grand division of the Boston Purchase lot number. And that's what your abstracted things will still go back to, because that's the very first legal settlement. By the way, the Boston Purchase map was lost by Broome County for 35 years. I got to be county historian, and it had disappeared. It had been sent up to Northeast Document Conservation Center, That $5,000 been served. It came back and went away. Well, it apparently didn't really go away. Went to the record center and they mislabeled it and put it between two pieces of cardboard and forgot about it. And about 4 years ago, I got a call saying, could I come back? I'm supposed to be retired and identify this map. I said, is it written on both sides? And is there a wax seal and are there names on the back? I said, how do you know? Because it used to be in the county clerk's office where my office was, in an old wooden frame against wood. Absolutely the worst thing you could do with Scotch tape holding it together. It has now just come back. They sent it to a firm in Texas. They spent $30,000 to get it conserved. And they've got it in a proper setting now so everyone can finally see it. Because it's the legal document for most of the land in Broome County.
Wow.
Sure.
So,
And that's why Jim is pointing that out, because except for a small portion of it, a lot of you are living it.
Jim, you have a question back there.
they, like, was the process to make these lithography? Or was it, some other form of printing? Like, what type of printing?
Pretty much all of the maps that we've been looking at here are an engraved process, a copper plate that's been engraved and printed in the press.
So kind of like lithography, then. I think that's a steel plate, but it's.
Lithography is printed from a stone, a piece of limestone that is inked with a sort of a waxy crayon type of utensil, and then it's sort of based on the process of the repulsion of oil and water. So you take that oily waxy crayon and you draw the image, and then you dampen the stone, and then you place the ink onto the stone, and the ink is attracted to the waxy substance and holds onto that. It's printed onto the paper and then transferred that way. An engraving, the copper plate engraving, you actually take a tool, a burin or something like that, and engrave the image into the plate, and then it's inked and wiped clean, and then you need a lot of pressure in the press to transfer that over to the paper.
Okay, so like an action.
Jim, you had a question in the back of the room.
You know when maps started being produced in the United States and where they were being produced? It's even important that, it's happening in Europe, but then when did we start producing our own maps?
I couldn't really hear that one. I'm sorry.
The question is, when did we begin producing our own maps in the United States or in America? Maybe if it was before the revolution. The home produced maps.
Maps in general, Boston would have been the first area where maps were being published, 1640s or so. Again, very, very simple maps of Boston, of New England. There's the John Farmer map of New England. That's 1651, I think. That's a woodblock engraving, a print, not a copper engraving. Philadelphia then became sort of the main seat of publishing. Later, moving into the 18th century, and then of course it took off from there. New York, Chicago, into the 19th century. So basically, from the beginning, as early as people were here, they were interested in telling other people about what's here, and how do you do that? You make books.
This is of Western New York in 1809. And we're down in the corner of it here. All the way down here. Oh, no, we didn't get it. Didn't catch it.
No. You have to,
Then go up or down?
Back.
there you go. Now you can see the bottom of the map.
Wherever your finger is. That's toward, and this map shows a lot of turnpikes. And Bath Turnpike, I don't know if that hooked onto the Montrose, which of course we know was part of the original, actually the Owego and Milford, or Milford and Owego, whichever, goes down lots across Pennsylvania to Milford, PA. And but this shows just, a lot of them. There's a straight line one here that I don't even believe, the Lake Erie Turnpike Road, and it goes from Bath dead straight west to Lake Erie. Well, I doubt that. And then there's the Ontario and Genesee Turnpike Road. There's a proposed canal between Mud Creek and, basically it kind of puts the Genesee River, hooks it into the Tonawanda River. With a straight line, whether that was ever north of Batavia. Don't know if that was ever built. The new state road, which would have been probably Route 20, is shown. And the Finger Lakes are pretty well defined. But it's an interesting map.
What year was that?
1809. Pretty early. The final one, I'm not, maybe I have two more. I'm not sure. Did he have this one on?
no.
Country of the Northern Iroquois. Interesting stuff. This is another one of these where it's pretty well defined along the coast, and then it just turns into kind of really nothing. But it talks up here about the country of the Iroquois, and then it shows the bays. Does a good job of showing the bays on the south shore of Lake Ontario. I'm thinking it's in French, but I'm not sure. And it's called, in the cartouche, it's called A New and Accurate Map of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and New England. And it's by Emmanuel Bowen. You know Bowen, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. It's just, again, I'm not sure. This one, I was really hopeful that it showed Owego, but I'm not sure it does. It shows a place called Japan down in the Hudson River. No, I know why I'm interested in this. Right here, it shows ONNEY umlaut OWST. That's a mouthful. I'd like to think that's Owego, but I'm sort of thinking it's Oneonta. Really? Phonetics and everything, it brings it closer to Oneonta, and I think where it's located is closer to Oneonta as well.
Yeah, but can you spell it one more time?
I can try.
Okay.
ONNEYOUST.
Kathy Robinson.
No, because I thought maybe it was Owego, but I can't make it out of that either.
Mhm.
No. And this is interesting because it's in the linguistics, It's, there's a lot that goes into this. You get off into the side trails and how this all really fits, and I'm just fascinated by it.
Well, the guess.
Yeah, right. Well, there's Mexico up in,
Yeah, Cuba's over in Western.
yeah.
So that one doesn't show Owego on it, Jim?
Well, it shows this thing that we don't know what it is. It's only
Just okay, but not
and I think
so
that's only. I don't think it's Owego, but
that map comes out of a book that was published in 1744. So if you can make a connection, that would be one of your earliest.
6 years. Well, we don't know that it does. But
It's in a different language though?
yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's well, it's kind of hard to tell. I'm not much of a linguist, but
Can you translate the language and then maybe it will come up?
well, yeah, we play with that on our phones afterwards. right, maybe Bryan can tell us about a little bit about the history on it. Really, this is the Burr survey just before the mountain went away. I'm sure, Bryan, you can tell us something about Burr and what he was trying to accomplish and.
Sure. Well, you see a lot of these where, you're going, you wouldn't really call it a map. It's more of like a plat, we're identifying land, and like Caleb was saying earlier, earlier maps, it's a lot of area, and sometimes the small finite areas aren't well defined. Well, here it is, as, people are coming into the area, there's more and more interest in it. So, hey, things got to be quantified in order to put them for sale. So on a lot of these plats, you're going to see a lot of these are homesteads lots. They're numbered here. Some of them have names, probably for some early settlers that were here. But this is a map that's, hey, this is going. The purpose of this is to quantify land for sale. So your land agents could have this to show to prospective investors or whatnot, and saying, hey, this is what we're trying to sell you.
So one
year on this
29.
Okay.
Are there any good tales about when Chemung, which is over here, was broken away from Tioga? Did you ever?
Well, the big thing on that, I think what drove that was the Chemung Canal, especially on our western border. On the eastern border, I think it's there's a lot more, interesting things as far as me. I think when Broome County came off of Tioga, I think the original boundary was the Owego Creek. And I think it was a very short time. I think
1806 to 1822.
Yes. So in that area, you would be living in Owego, but you'd be a Broome County resident. And Jim, collector, a neat thing that it would be neat to find a postcard or something of that short snippet of history. Say, hey, Owego for at one point in time, was in Broome County. But these plat maps, their usefulness is still important today. Like Jim was saying, when you buy title to your property, a lot of your abstract should chase the land, the legal instrument of the land back to the original purchase of it, through the Queen, So when surveyors or abstractors are researching your property, they're chasing this back, and you will see the Grand Division of the Boston Purchase. You'll see the Cox's patent, the Gore patent, the Nanticoke tract. A lot of these you'll see in and throughout our county.
Great. Burr, by the way, did one of those for almost every county in New York State. Because there is
I was just going to say, he did one for every single county in the state.
From the entire state, which aren't too many copies around. I know two, but he was a good surveyor, and map cartographer.
I'd like to put a shout out, Bryan. You once showed me and I haven't been back to it, but you have a wonderful webpage for history on the county site.
Sure. Yes.
So I've talked to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think my predecessor there, Bill Ulster, put together like a time machine. In essence, is what it was put together as. Saying, the birth of Tioga County when it came into existence, the years escaping me, but a while back, and then the subsequent county splits that came off of that. As far as Broome County came off of Tioga. Chemung, I think parts of Tompkins, Portland, all a little bit. And it's just it's kind of neat to walk those the institutions back. Say, hey, what counties existed at a certain point in time. So if you want to check that out, it's on the Tioga County website. Get in there; it's a web application. Kind of walks you through. And in today's thing, even with tonight's theme, is all the maps we looked at today are they're paper. They're tangible. You feel them. The application that's online, it's actually together as a story. Because like we've gone through here, maps tell a story. But since we're in the digital age, this is how things are put together. Scroll through there. you know, the zoom on those is incredible. You know, it's lacking in these paper ones. You see Jim up here with a magnifying glass and his glasses, you know, double magnification, you know, trying to see these things. Where today, you know, I think we take it for granted that, you know, we can really get in there on the finite crooks, and that brings questions into itself.
Oh, we're gonna find that, and I'll give it to our social media people, and we'll do a post on your page.
Sure.
Yeah, and now, is that under ED&P or real estate or tax department? Who are you under?
Nope. GIS, they give us our own services tab, so you'll find that kind of the top of the
GIS.
Yeah, GIS. So GIS is the Geographic Information System, where today, you know, a lot of questions about how maps are produced. Today, things are digital. You're not going to see even engineers, old school engineers. I think that it's a dying trend to put annotations on maps. Everything's computer based. Personally, I think you lose some of the artistic values of it, the essence of cartography with this. You know that these not only are they useful as far as historical context, but just the art of them. I think everybody will see that these are visually pleasing. Where today's maps, you know, you really lose some of that. Today's maps are easily reproduced. The information, the data that's underneath those is available to anybody. You know, if you want to download, you know, the streets of New York, you know, you can have that, you know, on your computer in an instant. Where, you know, I think we take that for granted of what it took to get the actual information behind it.
Thanks.
Hey, good. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter.
I think when we were talking about the surveyors and how they did it, and what you brought up, the point, I think we forget that the ship navigation, taking shots of the sun, and the surveyors were experts at that. So in addition to the change, so it wasn't as mystical as because the ship navigators had been doing it for many centuries, and they used some of the same technology when they surveyed, and so that's how some of them were very accurate.
Thanks, Brian. Good. Do we have any other questions? That's the last I have to show. If not, well, it'll be laying up here. You're very welcome to look. There is a magnifying glass, and I guess if there are no questions, thank you very much, Caleb, for being with us.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I'm really, you know, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. As you said at the beginning, it's something that we were talking about for a while, but let's not exclude that from happening down the line sometime. I'd love to, you know, come and see your town and the shop and everything that's going on there and meet you in person.
Well, there's a lot of history here, and a lot of people have done a lot of history, and it kind of comes in waves, the interest, you know. The bicentennial, of course, brought a lot of interest, and I'm just always flying the flag that's called early Owego because on this notion of the fact that it is the oldest settlement around, in a way, in a real way, I think, of a place of importance, and it doesn't show up on maps like this if it wasn't important. Now, what it meant to us, and, you know, what the importance was, I'm not quite sure whether it was military or commerce or just a place so that when you got there, you knew where you were. But it really was a wilderness, and to see our fair village this far back is thrilling to me, and a lot of fun to put the collection together. And I'm going to continue to try to get back further and further. Thanks again, Caleb.
Thanks a lot.
Sounds like a plan.